Think of a newborn baby girl. She is the latest model of human being, the proud result of millennia of research and development that makes the most fantastic computer seem like an abacus. She can learn, teach, design, build. She can fly, literally. She can travel to another planet, and many of her contemporaries will. Can you believe, even for a moment, that this astonishing being was designed without a defense system?
Why do we think Mother Nature would make human females defenseless and only males attackers or defenders? We all have beauty and beast within us. All human beings are both predator and prey. And fortunately for our future, we all have the potential for partnership.
Allow me to introduce Ellen Snortland, author of a book called Beauty Bites Beast, and director of the movie you're about to watch.
I'm not sure where your voice is coming from.
I am everywhere. I am the guy who knows everything.
Everything?
Oh, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
How about unraveling the mystery of male violence against women, and especially against the women they know?
Whoa, that is a mystery. In a world, wow. Statistics from the World Health Organization say that 1 in 3 women are attacked in their lifetimes. That's crazy. Is that true? Why didn't I know that?
I'll get back to the copy.
This is a pandemic. How many female Einsteins, George Washington Carvers, or Shakespeares have we lost to trauma, beatings, rapes, or murders? I have never thought of that. That is a lot of missing talent.
At least 3 safety lessons from Dorothy and the Lion in The Wizard of Oz are wiser than any action movie. 1. People and situations are not always the way they first appear. 2. A strong verbal boundary and a little non-lethal force are powerful. 3. Courage is essential.
You could say that again.
Courage is essential. This movie is going to talk about male violence toward women and a very rarely examined piece of the solution: women as their own protectors. Watch this. He balls his fist. He raises his fist. Now he prods her. Who knows what he says to her now? And bam! She's had enough.
Women have been taught not to defend ourselves, not to protect ourselves, that we have to depend on somebody else to protect us. And this is just horrible damage.
Consider this. Let's say you're walking along and you encounter a snarling, growling dog. What do? You stop, you back up, you move away. You do not check to see if the dog is male or female. Oh no, you don't. Fear is a form of respect.
Think globally, act locally. There is nothing more local than your own body. Whether a woman is in Kenya, the Middle East, Nepal, or where our film focuses, North Dakota, Mexico, and Jerusalem, women all over the world share basic needs.
They want a safe life, and they want to be powerful in their own lives. I mean, I've done this class for movie stars. I've done this class for the average, suburban, soccer mom. And now I've done this class for, Mexican factory workers, and they're all the same. They all want the same thing. They want a safe life, and they want to be powerful in their own lives.
It's always interesting to me what people picture when I tell them that I teach self-defense. It's usually some form of combat, a martial arts movie, something related to guns. And for me, there are physical skills and there is power in our bodies. But what's most important about self-defense is being able to have enough presence of mind to make a choice when someone else is trying to overpower us.
First of all, I want to say that the work of empowering children, and especially girls, as well as women, to really set boundaries, to take care of themselves is fundamental.
As long as violence against women continues to be at an epidemic level like it is now, and I think that has a huge impact on society in general. You know, as long as we continue to be second-class citizens, nothing's ever going to go right.
Back up. Back up.
The current solutions to ending male violence against females fall into two basic categories. The first category is before an assault takes place, which includes warn women, don't walk alone, don't wear revealing clothing, don't drink. Oh, by the way, don't be a female. Don't. As if following all those rules will stop a rapist. The other before strategy is to change men. We agree.
The male are the main perpetrators. So we also train the male instructors and go to the classes, goes to the community and train all the boys.
It's an assumption we make that the boys have this goodness that's already in them, just like the girls do. And we want to build on that goodness.
The other category of solutions to ending violence against women all involve what happens after an assault takes place. Many assailants expect impunity, so refining the penalties for men who commit such crimes is important. Catching repeat offenders who slip through the cracks in the system. There are much needed programs providing aftercare for the victims, reporting, counseling, women's shelters, and the like. The big missing conversation is what is a woman supposed to do during an attack or just immediately preceding the assault attempt? Where is the immediate consequence to the perpetrator, delivered by the target herself? We empowerment self-defense folks, many of us female, object to being excluded from conversations about ending violence. The woman herself is almost always missing from the solution to ending violence while it's happening. Geez, no one's ever left women out of decisions concerning their own welfare or bodies before. That's a new one.
Do I detect sarcasm?
We're making a place at this ending violence table in order to give more women a choice in how they relate to violence while it's taking place. As it is now, the during solutions are rarely funded or even discussed at all. We're providing missing conversations about ending violence. Ken and I represent two views rarely heard in current policy discussions: empowerment self-defense advocates and male allies. Prehistory places men and women at the center, in partnership for survival, just to get from one generation to the other, shoulder to shoulder, facing forward.
Doesn't masculine equal protector?
You know, in my professional as well as personal observation, when it comes to guys defending women or whoever, you know, unfortunately, a lot of them are clueless. A lot of them, not all, but a lot of them are clueless, and in fact, they make the situation worse.
Self-defense is consistently ignored as an element to help solve the epidemic of violence against women. Why?
It's been my experience that men don't think about self-defense for women at all, because they tend to view themselves as the protectors. You know, it's their job to protect their wives and their family. And that just isn't necessarily true. But that's the belief that they have. So they don't see a need for it because they're going to take care of them. And I think reframing their thinking to what about those times when they're not present.
I'm always reframing self-defense. Sometimes it's people who believe that self-defense is victim blaming. Other times it's people who think it's not accessible to people with physical disabilities. Other times it's making sure that classroom environments are safe and supportive of gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender people. It's important that people who experience threats to their safety because of who they are in the world have a self-defense class that they can go to that teaches skills that are relevant to their lives.
There has been a lot of reframing of self-defense over the years, mostly by women. And what we do now is we're teaching what we call empowerment self-defense. So we look at the whole person. You know, we look at maybe what sexual assault history they might have, or what if there's some trauma that we might trigger and how we would handle that. And, you know, the whole person, giving them confidence, stand up for themselves, you know, just walk through life more comfortable. And there have been many men over the years who have stood by our side and helped us in our goals.
The choice is to go from fear to what? Anger.
It is very odd to have a public school have self-defense for girls. And I'm interested in having that become contagious.
They looked at the statistics, especially what was going on with women on college campuses, and said, we really need to come up with something for these girls.
Hey, go for the head, go for the face, go for the groin.
My teacher, who is awesome, would pin you to the ground, would chase you, would yell at you.
A girl would do something really, pretty good in class and say, that's good enough. That would work. And then I had my daughter, and I'm holding this little tiny, bald, toothless, gorgeous thing, and I started realizing these girls are as important to their parents as my daughter is to me. And so I started to push even harder.
I immediately got it. I met Ellen in Oaxaca, Mexico, and just immediately connected with her. And then when I came back, I read her book, and it just made perfect sense. Very, very logical. Her ideas and plus the empirical evidence of women, from women who have gone through this type of course.
You agreed to let some of your employees time off from work to do this class. That's not really helpful to productivity. What were you thinking?
Ultimately, I could see that it would have an outcome of creating self-confidence and fostering leadership in the participants' individual lives as well as in our company.
Women are naturally interested in learning how to respond to violence while it's happening. A majority of the Tijuana students who signed up were already impacted by violence in their homes, on the streets, everywhere, and had never been told what to do in the moment.
When I put my helmet on, I'm not the nice guy. Don't turn your back on him. Don't listen to him.
Cuando me pongo mi casco soy Jack, y en ese caso no me escuchen, no den la vuelta.
Puta!
Stop right there. I don't want to
aquí!
No! Back off!
Con eso ya se fue.
I know, we think that it takes a lot more than that to stop an assault. But he's not looking for a fight. He's looking for an easy target. Let's look at another scenario.
No se me acerque, quédese donde está.
No se me acerquen.
Hey!
No! 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 No!
Women teaching women, empowerment-based self-defense is often key to teaching women and girls, at least until we shift general attitudes. Why? Even though easy-to-learn physical self-defense skills are not rocket science, many women who see a man demonstrate those skills rarely say to themselves, well, if he can do it, I can do it. Most women don't see themselves as potentially dangerous mammals. Most of us assume that only men are born that way.
Can you imagine what a man who means you harm and thinks you're a good target, imagine what he would think if you yelled, "No!" So it's important to learn that attitude. Okay?
If you're completely able to say no, you're going to be completely able to say yes. So that's very important.
The issue that women are discouraged in this culture from saying no in general. And even when they say it, they're not really heard. So in Western culture, when a man says no, it's the end of a discussion. And when a woman says no, it's the beginning of a negotiation.
So right leg goes back and hands come up. No!
These women are being taught something different from all women in terms of women's culture. Women's culture doesn't teach us how to be warriors, how to take care of ourselves. They teach us to be supporters, to be mothers, to be aunties, to be the boss's assistant, and so on and so forth. So there's a global expectation that women will stay in their place, which is usually not at the front of the line.
When I first was told, okay, yell, that was probably the hardest thing for me to do. Okay, hit, fine, I can figure out how to hit. But to say, go away, back off, that was a really tough thing for me.
One at a time.
And I realized, well, wait a minute, all I have to do is tap into my mommy voice. Because I'm driving in a car and it's raining and my kids are going nuts in the back seat. I'm gonna give one command that will get absolute silence. I'm gonna say, be quiet now. And there will be absolute silence in the car because they can see I'm serious. A kid running out to the street and you yell, stop! You've saved them. Okay, can you access that voice for yourself? Same voice. Same voice. Can you access it to protect yourself?
No! A lot of the women that we would teach, we would ask them, how would you feel if you saw someone attacking your friend? And they, I'd go help, I'd get help, I'd do something. And then it's like, well, what would happen if you saw them attacking a child? Boom, they turn into then you'd see the tigers, you'd see this lioness, you'd see this down at the basics. This is what I would do. Mm-hmm. But then you turn around and ask them, what would happen if somebody attacked you? Blank. They don't know.
It's something that's been subjugated and oppressed within us, so that we have forgotten that we have this power. And I believe it's natural, but we have to tap into it, tap into our own natural instincts and into our own natural resources. And our fortitude to really be able to learn these lessons of self-defense.
So loud, one more time. Ready? Go!
Same voice. Same voice. No! Can you access it to protect yourself? No! I can access it to protect somebody else. That's easy. It's a no-brainer. But can I access it to protect myself?
I think maybe the most amazing thing that I see is just self-confidence. Women walking in day one being scared and walking out, day one at the end not being scared, or at least having a different, a paradigm shift regarding fear. We've been afraid to be afraid for so long that when you get into class and you're afraid and you fight through it, it's like, oh, fear's not such a big deal after all.
And that was a surprise to me. Women really didn't know how to defend themselves. I grew up in a family of boys, and we were always fighting, and I guess we knew that was how we defended ourselves.
People have said to me, why North Dakota? Why are you doing a segment on self-defense in North Dakota? Oh, like there aren't any predators in North Dakota? Are you kidding? And one of the reasons I'm in North Dakota is because It is an example of the power of one person to make a difference. A man read my book, Beauty Bites Beast, and was so inspired by it, he bought a copy, or actually he went over to Kay Mendick at University of North Dakota and said, "You've got to read this." She did. And because she read Beauty Bites Beast, the Women's Center has been sponsoring Impact Personal Safety courses here for 14 years. How many students have you trained?
Probably been about 3,500, 3,500 to 4,000 students.
Grand Forks, learning the exact same things that the students learned in Tijuana. Everyone is alike in the first class, and as it turns out, during the entire class.
You know how to fight for men, right?
Angela Champagne-Frome, the survivor from Minneapolis-St. Paul, drove to Grand Forks to experience and heal from the attack she'd experienced approximately 18 months before. That's also where the Beauty Bites Beast crew met Angela's former high school self-defense teacher, Bill Nice.
Unless we feel safe, nothing else is accomplished to the degree that it could be. And I think that at the university level, at the high school level, we have an obligation to our students to provide as much opportunity for every single student, male and female.
In a world, it is a human need to be safe. Famous psychologist Dr. Abraham Maslow created a hierarchy of human needs, with the most basic needs on the bottom of the pyramid. The need to be safe is just above food, water, and shelter.
Men dominate women when they make women dependent on men for their basic needs as the provider of food, shelter, and safety.
And I know, as a professor of social work, that you need to fight back. And the literature supports fighting back, correct? So why don't we teach women to do that? It isn't unfeminine to fight back.
Why don't we teach women and girls to fight back?
Well, for sure, people only take action consistent with what they see as possible. If you think something's impossible, you're not going to take action on it because why bother? Why would you?
The Obama administration, the first presidency to take sexual assault and gender-based violence seriously, making it a national conversation. But here's the problem. Predators are canny about attacking women when the good guys aren't around. And in the 2014 White House Task Force to protect students from sexual assault, there is not one mention of self-defense. Self-defense doesn't even exist as a possibility. And so far, the solutions being offered, again, put women in that familiar position, being dependent on men. Depending on men to either behave or depending on men to intervene.
Put an end to sexual assault. And that starts with you.
It's still saying you need us, telling women that you need us men to protect you because you're not capable of doing it for yourself. And so when you have people at the level of the Vice President of the United States and the President of the United States telling the population that you still need us, women, it's sending an entirely wrong message in my mind.
Why wait to be rescued when...
It's very early that girls learn this sense of helplessness and dependence, and it comes really with the fairy tales. We're really starting with cultural messages that begin actually before children's brains are fully formed. The good thing about the time that we're living in is that many of us, and more of us, are rejecting these stereotypes of a powerful masculinity and a powerless, dependent, helpless femininity.
Well, I remember as a young lady, my parents telling me that someday Prince Charming would come and sweep me off my feet and keep me safe and would protect me.
He told her, "You're lucky, you're a fighter."
I didn't have anything to fight him off with. He had a knife and I had my hands. And my hands won.
It's clear that self-defense is not even a possibility for policymakers in Washington. How else to explain that in the 176 pages of the 1994 Violence Against Women Act, VAWA, and the 108 pages of the 2013 reauthorization of that act, there's not one mention of teaching women how to protect themselves during an assault. Not one. And if we don't exist in a fundamental document like VAWA, we are also not going to win grants to create more comprehensive studies on self-defense. If we can't point to studies, we have even less chance of government or non-governmental grants. It's a nasty, vicious circle. Recommending and funding third-party intervention is like financially backing lifeguards, but not paying for swimming lessons for the swimmers.
We have worked with some of the best writers, good people who know how to write, know how to pitch a grant, and have been successfully frustrated over the last few years.
Yeah, we've always kind of suspected that people don't fund us because they don't believe in what we do, but you actually heard it.
There are a lot of stereotypes that people really accept and incorporate because they really don't want to believe that women get attacked. I think a natural reaction to that is just denial. You know, if you pretend that it doesn't happen, then it's not real.
The stereotype is men are violent and women are nice. Women are not taught to be aggressive because the culture, I think, says women are by nature not aggressive, which is not true. And so women are not taught to use their power.
If it's not a woman's job to keep herself safe when she is alone, whose is it?
Why do so many people, women and men, dislike women's self-defense? Is it taboo?
It's very ironic, isn't it, that we consider that normal, when it's really pathological, that women would need a man to protect them from other men. But that's where we are right now.
But I had some people going, oh, I don't know, really? Should you be doing that? But why is that a reaction? I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out. Why is that something that people go like this, you know? And it was women.
Select a card.
Recently, Time magazine revealed that 19% of U.S. undergraduate women are victims of sexual assault in college. Why has such a horrific epidemic been swept under the rug for so long, and what can colleges do to combat this?
More awareness is very important so women can learn how to protect themselves. Myself, as a 4th degree black belt, I learned from a young age that you need to be confident and being able to defend yourself, and I think that's something that we should start to really implement for a lot of women.
Thank you. Tough question.
Headline: Feminists freak out. News outlets ran with this when a certain segment of the women's movement, for their own reasons, faulted the new Miss USA, Nia Sanchez, for coming out in support of women learning to protect themselves.
My biggest surprise was people putting words into my mouth. I don't know if you've read all the reviews and remarks. Some are great and positive, but some people said she's pro-rape because she thinks women should be able to empower themselves and defend themselves if they come across a bad circumstance. So that completely surprised me.
By the same token, the Dalai Lama came out and said the same thing as Miss USA, and there was no similar attack on him for saying he thinks women should learn to protect themselves. Or if there was, the popular and social networks did not pick it up.
The image of self-defense right now is really one that is inconsistent with the classic image of a ladylike woman. It's considered unladylike to defend yourself. There could even be a class thing.
What do you tell parents when they have concerns that learning self-defense is not ladylike or not feminine?
I would use myself as an example. I wear a crown.
In every movement to further women's rights, whether it was to get to read, to vote, to earn a living, there's always a controversy about what's feminine and what is not. The same thing stands for self-defense.
It's not about, men being the enemy or, us hating men. It's not at all. Violence is the enemy. So our goal is to get men and women to work together to end the cycle of violence.
Isn't it man-hating to teach women to defend themselves from men?
What do you think about women having to deal with being called a man-hater for teaching women how to defend themselves?
That, I think, really is a misdirection. I think it's one of those kind of things where it's like, look over here, see what we're doing over here, but something's really going on over here.
Doesn't feminine equal small and helpless?
Not all women are smaller than all men.
Many women and men have defensive dysmorphia. Some men look in the mirror and see a warrior. Many women look in the mirror and see, well, a chick. Beep, beep, beep. Defensively speaking, of course.
Size can be a factor in self-defense, but it's only one factor. If size were the only factor, why would a 220-pound man be scared of a 90-pound Rottweiler female?
Actually, courage and brains wins over brawn a lot.
Essential for self-defense. 1, possibility. 2, opportunity. 3, courage.
Non-essential for self-defense? 1, anatomical correctness. 2, being larger than your attacker.
This African grey parrot has become the talk of the town after he came to his owner's rescue during a random attack in a North London park.
Yeah, I love you.
Rachel Marino was taking her pet parrot Onesie for a walk when she was shoved to the ground by a man who approached her from behind. Luckily, Onesie spotted the man and began flapping his wings and squawking loudly to scare off the attacker. Wait. Okay.
The gender is irrelevant in each of these instances where courage trumps size. That can be true for human females too. The cat, the bird, and the dog are not trained to be only decorative, passive, and inconsequential. The growling dog is not burdened with notions of what's attractive, ladylike, or proper for her gender. She simply delivers consequences.
How do women still go out with guys when you consider the fact that there is no greater threat to women than men? Yeah, I'll go out with you alone at night. What are you, nuts? If you're a guy, try to imagine that you could only date a half bear, half lion. I hope this one's nice.
We empowerment self-defense folks ask, what if a critical mass of women channeled their own inner lion, tiger, or bear? Oh my! And what if we stopped raising our girls to think of themselves as defenseless? As well, excuse the expression, chicks. Bears and chicks are not a great match.
Shame on you!
What did you do that for? Come on, aren't men wired differently?
In our society, men are taught, boys, from the time they're boys, they're taught to fight. They're taught how to fight and what to expect if they're hit. Girls and women generally are less likely to expect to be hit, which is absurd given the statistics.
I can't stress enough, how as young men in this world, we're being indoctrinated to be misogynistic. It's just constant pressure every day from the time of being small to disregard and disrespect women. And somehow, some men are able to grow up and get through that and just be respectful. Most of us can't and don't.
Sus técnicas físicas no es más importante. Que es más importante es su espíritu. ¿Sí?
In my upbringing, coming from a Muslim environment, there was an expectation that I wouldn't ride a bike, that I wouldn't swim, that there aren't that those cultures have much less of an expectation that you will use your body physically as an athlete. So I grew up with a complete lack of hand-eye coordination, some of the things that you get from sports, a body awareness, a physicality that then meant the idea of defending myself was even more foreign to the culture that I came from.
We depict violence as both inevitable and entertaining, and the movies and TV shows we watch teach us all a large lesson about men, either directly or indirectly, that men are virtually invincible, and it is simply impossible to defend against an angry male.
Bad move, Grandpa.
Prepare to die.
A lifetime of seeing male lives and mostly fictional physical superiority depicted in storytelling is, in essence, propaganda, buoying up the idea that men are strong and women are weak.
Fight scenes in the movies and on TV are staged for heightened dramatic effect and are never based in reality, just ticket sales. And let me tell you, the reality of a groin shot is a lot different.
Rules. In a knife fight, no rules.
It doesn't stop here. It stops here. All the way up.
We are so overtraining because, you never know how in real life what might happen, so everyone wants to be overtrained. But one of these knees to the groin, that would be the end of the fight right there. No questions asked.
1, 2, 3. Do that.
Who exactly benefits from the spin on female helplessness?
The perpetrators and action film producers.
One of the only realistic examples we've seen on screen in a long time is what Carrie Mathison did in the season 2 opener Homeland. Pursued and then cornered by a bad guy in a crowded marketplace, she suddenly turns to face him, knees him in the groin, and bam, he's on the ground writhing in pain. She then uses her formidable brain to create a drama and pretends to go get help, and she escapes unscathed. No testosterone-laden brawn fest for her self-protection.
Susan B. Anthony thought women should not only vote, but be complete human beings. Now that's audacious.
I declare to you that woman must not depend upon the protection of man, but must be taught to protect herself. And there, I take my stand.
Where are the women who are really role models for us for defending themselves against violence?
My name is Edith Margaret Garrett. I was born in 1872, and as far as we know, I was the first Western woman trained in jiu-jitsu in 1899. I knew this Japanese martial art could help women in their fight to win the vote in England. Since we tended to be smaller than our opponents, and our attackers didn't wear corsets and dresses, we needed to be creative. I trained as many as 50 women in London, called the Bodyguard, to protect the suffragettes being attacked by men, hooligans and police officers. These men were threatened by the idea of women voting. We were very good at what we did, and what we did became known as suffragitsu.
The absence of women's history makes both men and women believe that women are not as important as men are, and contributes to violence against women. Apropos of this topic, self-defense for women, we should be in at least the 5th generation of public conversation by now.
Ballet and embroidery used to be the main pursuits of young ladies. Now add self-defense. Weaker sex, that's a love.
Did I do all right? Come on, come on. Have a sip. Come on.
Not just the movies we see, not just, the television shows we watch, but also the news. There's so many images of people perpetrating violence and almost no images of people successfully resisting.
We are surrounded by stories of violence, in movies, in headlines, everywhere. Violence perpetrated by men, often upon women who are drugged or not able to consent, or who are awake and have no idea how to deal with violence, or the fact that they know and love the person who is attacking them.
Of sexual entitlement that permeates the culture, of course, is one of the major reasons that we see so much date rape, that we see fraternity or other parties where women are raped, and it's considered okay. And that's here in the United States. Of course, in other world regions, in India, for example, gang rape is almost normal. I mean, it's horrible to have to say that, but it's only recently and in the most horrendous of circumstances that that's coming to light today.
Here's an example of this kind of twisted logic.
Once in a cabinet meeting, we had to deal with the fact that there had been an outbreak of assaults on women at night. Well, one minister suggested a curfew. Women should stay home after dark. I said, but it's the men who are attacking the women. If there's to be a curfew, let the men stay home, not the women.
But it's not fair to make men stay inside. If the woman is out after dark or wearing a sexy outfit, isn't she asking for it?
Let's clear this up once and for all. A woman cannot cause her own rape. Period.
If the she was raped because she was wearing a short skirt idea was true, then women wearing burqas would never be raped.
Sheep are raped from Wyoming to Kuwait, and no one argues they were asking for it.
Speaking of shepherds, what about David and Goliath? That's a self-defense story.
I'm pretty sure David didn't conquer Goliath because he had a penis, but because he knew brains and courage could outsmart brawn. The same model works for women.
Despite evidence to the contrary, do most of us really believe that it's impossible for girls and women to defend themselves?
If we had a culture, for instance, that said that water is always dangerous, that you will probably die if you go into it, only experts and only certain people can go into it, what would happen?
Well, people wouldn't go in the water. I mean, that would be, just common sense. And the logic is inescapable, unless they saw examples of people go in the water, survive, and then share about it. And if they didn't see that, then they would have no reason to ever think there was anything else possible, because everything told them this is not a smart idea. In fact, it's a deadly idea. And that is, I think, very much so the culture of self-defense for women, because it looks like everybody tells us, or the media, and you're weak, you should just stay quiet, run, escape, but don't fight back. In fact, they say don't fight back because it will instigate your attacker.
You're not going to turn a well-intended man into a rapist, woman beater, attacker by setting a boundary. It's just not. It doesn't work that way.
So that is the culture that we're living in, and the question is, how do you spread a message where, no, this is possible, this is doable, and you can do it?
If what you teach is so natural and so good for women and girls, how come you weren't on Oprah? Then your message would have spread like wildfire.
The women being attacked today are not karate experts or terminators or super athletes, but they are school teachers, and they are mothers, and they are business women just like you and me. Now, the next scene you're about to see is a woman being forced into having oral sex.
I'm gonna show you what to do with this mouth.
We were on Oprah, and we had a temporary uptick in class enrollment, but that's it. Our appearance certainly didn't start a trend.
Okay, so you put your fingers together.
The idea of women defending themselves is so taboo. Even Oprah couldn't make a difference. That's some entrenched views.
Well, I don't think it's really possible to talk about ending violence against women without addressing what's happened to Juarez.
How to become a woman who portrays, who embodies confidence. This is not. Esto no es afectivo. Mira. Yes. Please, don't be molested.
I'm sick and tired and hoarse of being repeating and asking why something so important and so fundamental to women's human rights continues to be marginalized and denied. Why it continues to be ignored. That's my greatest frustration. That's something which so obviously works. That is the most well-proved form of prevention continues to be denied to women.
Listen to this, okay? For a moment, pause and listen to this. Oigan, nada más, no hagan nada más que oír. Listen. It's very painful and very effective. See, I'm small, but I can comfortably reach a tall man's eye. It's a very soft part of the hand to strike.
Hammer.
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 Hammer. Okay, think of martillo. Martillo, see? Martillo.
If the only tool you have is a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail. And I felt like, as a kid growing up in South Dakota, the only tool I was given was nice. And I soon learned when I moved to California that nice was not going to handle everything.
An A+ in nice, yes. Yes, definitely have an A+ in nice. Yeah. That's easy. That's my go-to. What I needed to learn from this class is my boundaries. Setting boundaries with people, everyday things, and that's something I think I'll use every day.
Maslow meant all human beings' needs, not just men's needs.
However, in reality, many women's triangles would have been very different. Find a provider, be nice, be really nice, be nice some more, be nice no matter what. That would be a nice triangle.
My overarching recommendation for women is to recognize that it is not a requirement that you be nice. And when people are nice to you, niceness is often a strategy. It's not a feature of a human being, like how tall they are or what color hair they have. It's not just I'm just a nice guy, because I'm not a nice guy in a different context. I'm a nice guy in a particular context. And typically, particularly when you're talking about romantic engagements and the beginning of them, the seduction, the asking you out, etc., of course they're nice. What's the alternative? And so niceness is a strategy, and it is not a feature of a human being.
If we want to change social policy, we have to speak loudly to the benefits of self-defense. And I don't know if that message is out there.
The efficacy of self-defense has been studied and has been out there for decades.
If every woman that had a self-defense class spoke up and said, this is how it made a difference for me. This is what I was able to do with self-defense. Then I think we would understand the power of it better, but I don't think there's that drive out there in social policy for funding around self-defense. Mm-hmm. And I see it as a data issue, and I see it as an information issue.
Whatever knee is back, bring it up and set it back down.
Keep your hands up there.
We're spending so much time teaching the skills, but the metric is zero. It's most successful when nothing happens. But it's better to have all the preparation you need and have nothing happen than it is to just hope everything's going to be okay and find yourself in a bad position.
It's very hard for women to learn to get their voice, learn to stand up for themselves. And so you need to somehow get that feeling of I can defend myself into your body. You have an identity as a helpless person, or I will only get where I want to be by being nice. That sort of is not nowhere to be found. And to activate that, you have to activate it physically. Yeah. And the pleasure of standing up for yourself.
Tijuana, the women were so brave to be there. It was overcoming obstacles, disapproval, and a sense of you can't possibly be feminine anymore if you don't trust your man to defend you. What's wrong that you don't trust your husband?
A lot of people who criticize women's self-defense will often say, you know, you just use stranger scenarios, but for the most part, women get attacked by, someone they know. Someone I know who may attack me, and I could use force to deter them from harming me, and possibly even, thinking of wanting to harm me, because I could show them, hey, look, I need you to stop. And they can see in my eyes and my body posture that I mean it. They're like, oh, this person could be aggressive.
We're inoculating somebody. So what happens many times is we're just discussing about perpetration or perpetrators, or it's a psychological abuse or psychological power. You call somebody a name, and you look at teenagers, it's, they fight over somebody calling them a bad name. Was that worth fighting over? And hey, what does that mean? What does that really mean? So you don't listen to it. You let it wash over you, and you stay in your own power, in your own sense, and then make your choices.
Puedo llevar, no me interesa. Búscala tú solo. Aléjate.
Me gusta mucho.
No me interesa. No me interesa lo que me digas. Aléjate de mí.
By women being empowered, they're going to raise more empowered young men and women, and it's going to, help change this whole dynamic.
Like, a mother who hasn't taken that kind of training will allow the boys to have power over the little girls, the sisters.
So it's important that when you're confronted with a situation, even if it's just a verbal strategy, that you deliver a consequence to that prospective assailant that helps him decide to never do it again.
No!
Use your voice, yell! And so the only consequences they'll get is what I decide to deliver. So I want my students to deliver the best consequences possible. I want that guy to think twice before ever assaulting another woman again, going, this one might kick me in the balls too.
One thing that I don't like about going after all the students is I'm all emotional after hearing you. And as a guy, I can't cry. I was wondering if impact would translate with the language barrier and cultural barrier. I found out that it translates very well.
And in many cases, if women are living in fear or they're suppressed or oppressed, then the world is missing out on, well, arguably more than 50% of the creativity.
If even 10% of the world's factory owners were responsive as Fred Auerlein, the world would be different for many working women.
Have you seen any changes in your workers?
Now already I have, after these first few classes, I have been talking to the women participating, and they're looking me in the eye. They are expressing what they're getting out of it, what it means to them. And that's incredible. Bueno. Buenos días.
Would you recommend this to other owners of businesses?
Oh, yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, it's just without a doubt.
And we all may live in different places, but I do believe we are one big family. So I'm very honored to be here. Thank you.
He's going to grab you and want you to yell and ground yourself.
No!
Great voice. Now shake it off.
Could you describe the violence that Native American women face?
I don't know where to start. I guess something I would like for people to know is that there's with the generational trauma, historical trauma, boarding school era, things like that. It introduced a lot of the sexual abuse, physical abuse, you know, everything that we experience now.
Find another one. Get yourself up. Take a deep breath.
My best friend took this class, and she kept telling me how awesome it was, therapeutic, all these different things.
Empowerment self-defense, not therapy, and therapeutic nonetheless.
So your survival brain has this automatic reactions to the world around you. And the big issue in therapy, healing from trauma, is how do you rewire that survival brain? And it's that marriage of the trauma with the taking action. That's the core curative part of impact. Because as long as you don't marry that powerful part of you with the traumatized part, there's two parts may lead to totally separate existences. And you guys integrate them.
The Power of Rumor, 2006. In Grogan B, a suburb of Nairobi, Kenya, HIV/AIDS infected men gossip that raping a granny will save their lives. The rumor spreads like wildfire. It's reported that men rape 5 to 10 grannies per month. No Means No Worldwide starts empowerment self-defense classes for grannies with their sister organization, Shosho Jikenge, in 2007. The Power of Rumor, after 2007. The men now gossip, if you try to rape a granny, you'll get your ass kicked. Since 2009, there has been only one rape attempt reported.
I'm coming. No! 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 No!
Elderly women are often targeted. They need to learn how to protect themselves.
No! Touch!
After the first hour of the class, I wondered, why aren't my sisters here with me? Why isn't my mother here with me? Why aren't my nieces? Why isn't every woman that I love here with me? They're missing out. They won't know. They won't know what I'm learning. And it was like, what will they do? They don't know.
Barry is 77 and anything but frail.
I don't even walk like that, I walk like this.
When I hear an older woman say, oh, that would be so wonderful for my daughter. Oh, it would be so wonderful for my granddaughter. And I look at her and I said, it would be so wonderful for all of you. You need to learn how to fight with a bad back, with a bad hip, with a bad arm. That's how you need to learn to fight, and they will teach you how to do that. So you can't think about limitations. You have to think about what you do have and fight with that.
It's really important to ensure that any self-defense tools we have to offer can be made accessible to people with a variety of ways of moving and can be made concrete and simple and straightforward enough that people with intellectual disabilities have access to them. Because people with disabilities experience 3 times the violent crime as people without disabilities. Rates of sexual assault against people with disabilities are much higher. So we need to ensure that anything we're teaching is accessible to the people who need it most.
There is an expectation that law enforcement will protect people, and in some cases that's a reasonable expectation. When it comes to personal safety, not so much. In that, they just can't be everywhere. There aren't enough people. I mean, in terms of law enforcement officers, they don't know when situations are developing, and the only time that they would know is if somebody calls them. And by that point, it's already happened.
10 years ago, the eyes of the nation were on Grand Forks.
22-year-old UND student Drew Shadeen was abducted in 2003. 5 months later, her body was found in a ravine near Crookston.
Has any self-defense provider ever made you feel bad or like you were victim blaming or anything like that?
Never.
Yeah.
Never. No. And I have, I've gone and witnessed other courses as well, besides the one here given at the University of North Dakota. I've never gathered that sort of feeling whatsoever. As I speak across the United States after losing my daughter, I really searched and looked towards what could I have given her far more than just being aware.
Drew Shadeen didn't get to participate in an empowerment self-defense course, but her mother did. Linda Walker is dedicated to making classes available in Drew's memory.
For me and for the women and children that I work for and serve, this is not a choice for Western feminists to decide who gets access or if this is victim blaming. I want to read a quote by Brendan Ross of UNICEF, a child protection specialist who's rolling out the No Means No programming in Malawi with UKAID funds. So he said, honestly, if anyone wanted to come here and tell a 13-year-old girl in a house that can't be locked, on a street with 3 or 4 bars on it, that she shouldn't have the skills or tools to defend herself, they'd get laughed at. So I think it's really nice that Western feminists feel like it's okay for them to decide whether or not they want this because it's there for them to choose.
Nilitembea nikamake sure hajaniweka katikati yao. And then I yelled. No!
It's not a theory. It's not a question.
Of course, if it weren't for the feminist movement, we wouldn't even be talking about this today. So yes, it's a feminist issue and a major human rights issue. Women and men, including feminists of both genders, internalize these stereotypes where real femininity is never associated with self-protection. And we're saying, wait a minute, we're going to rescue ourselves. Thank you. And that's heresy, but on a very unconscious level.
As you know, we ask a lot of questions. We say whether women can defend themselves, how women can defend themselves, and why should women defend themselves. And those 3 questions are all wrapped up in one. You can't really separate those things out. You know, violence is a fact of life.
What could happen to this world if every woman was taught this?
There'll be no more wars. There'll be more women who have whole and healthy lives without having a hole in their soul because they've been abused physically or emotionally and never had an opportunity to deal with that. So they carry that from themselves to their children, to their grandchildren in terms of the women, and also in terms of how males behave, and kind of silently acquiescing to what males do because that's just the way they are.
What has, over the years, what has surprised you the most about the work you're doing?
How universally, that in every single class, there is the most amazing amount of change. And that women come in not knowing how powerful they are, how loud their voice is, and how important they are to themselves and the people around them. And they walk out 3 sessions, 4 sessions later with a totally new sense of that. And it touches me. It doesn't surprise me anymore. It's touching, and I have hope that if we can do this consistently for groups of 16 women at a time, that they in turn will change their world.
So whatever we do, any training I think is good training. It's going to make a difference to that person, and that person's going to carry on that lesson to someone else, whether it's self-defense or it's becoming the embodiment of an empowered woman.
Until we shift the culture, there'll be a need to train women and girls in self-defense because it's currently not considered to be within the menu of female attributes. That will shift eventually. In nature, baby animals play, which is how they learn to hunt or to be defensive. Mama dog or cat or lion, tiger or bear do not split their offspring into segregated groups by gender. They all play and learn the power and limits of their own bodies. Title IX has allowed more girls access to athletics, a form of play. And that should help more females understand the potential of their own bodies.
What about the people who are genuinely opposed to violence and that self-defense is against their commitment to peace?
We are teaching young women to fight so that they don't have to fight. We're not trying to send trained martial artists or trained fighters out into the world to go seek some type of justice. No, the idea is that, especially for women, there is a general underlying threat or danger of something that might happen. And it comes from predatory people who are looking for targets. But by setting boundaries verbally and such, they never even get close to the physical part. And that's truly what we're trying to do here.
There are lots of choices, and I'm very much in favor of people having choices and being able to, if they choose to respond nonviolently, doing so as a choice, not as the only thing they know how to do because that's what they've been trained to do. Mahatma Gandhi was very much in favor of resistance to wrong, resistance to evil, resistance to injustice. And he thought that nonviolent resistance was often the most effective. But if you had to choose between nonviolent resistance and resisting evil is more important than nonviolence as such.
When a perpetrator makes the decision to do something violent, to not respect the other person, I don't need to worry about them anymore. My body, myself, my soul, my person is the greatest gift I have. It's my right to protect that. And it's my right to expect the world to treat that with respect. I think every individual is a world in and of themselves. And when we break that, we're really destroying a universe.
En la lucha es su espíritu que es más importante. Let's rock.
¿Qué pasa? ¿Qué quieres? ¡Aléjate! No, aléjate. No quiero problemas, aléjate. Voy a buscar ayuda, aléjate. Aléjate. No me importa. ¡Aléjate! ¡No! ¡No!
Bueno, muy bien. Muy bien. It's good. Miro. Evalúa. Evalúa.
Está bien.
You all do not deserve to be attacked.
Ninguna de ustedes merece ser atacada.
You don't deserve to be raped.
No merecen ser violadas.
You don't deserve violence in your lives.
No merecen tener violencia alrededor en sus vidas.
No one does.
Nadie. Nadie lo merece.
You deserve love.
Lo que merecen ustedes es amor.
You deserve beauty.
Merecen belleza.
And you deserve all the good things in life.
Y lo que merecen es tener las cosas bellas de la vida.
And now, you know you have the power in your spirit
Y ahora ustedes saben que ya tienen el poder en su espíritu.
to
la
make
fuerza.
sure that you fight for those things.
Y asegurarse de que ustedes van a pelear con esa fuerza.
And you change your lives to get those things.
Y ustedes están cambiando sus vidas para lograr eso.
Being on the side of supporting programs that help women get the tools they need to feel safer on a day-to-day basis. I think, for me, it's about quality of living. I think walking around always worried what's going to be around the corner or what's going to happen if is a much lower standard of living than, okay, if I had to deal with it, I have tools. I have tools to know how to deal with it. I hope it never happens, absolutely. But why shouldn't I?
Today, obviously, you're going to see some fighting, some intense fighting. All right. And it's going to get very loud. Very soon. No! To bring together the physicality of self-defense and the emotions connected to it.
I mean, self-defense is something that should be built on layer upon layer upon layer, and it should start very young. And then when you're a young woman, 12, 13, 14 years old, when you talk about the birds and the bees, you should be talking about self-defense.
When I teach kids self-defense, we teach boys and girls together, and I love it because the boys get to see that there are as many girls that are good at self-defense as they are, and the girls get to see that the boys are just human, just like they are.
The children's preconceived ideas of each other quickly unravel.
As far as we know, this is the only thing that works.
This being?
Empowerment self-defense.
Yeah.
I mean, you do a literature search of the world, and you look at the resources that have been spent over the 30, 40, and 50 years, and you come up with empowerment self-defense being the most effective and one of the most underutilized.
If you had a magic wand,
is moving out of rescue mode. Most of these attacks are happening once the person has been isolated, and there is no bystander. They've made darn sure that there's no bystander. The other thing is that it will take boys and girls to move the needle on sexual violence prevention. It's going to take both. It's not going to take just women and just men. That's what I've learned after all these years in extreme risk environments and, up close and personal with the epidemic that is sexual violence in the world. Move the funding out of this aftercare model. Just give 10% of what used to be the aftercare funding and give it to prevention, and we can rock this thing.
I have to admit, at first, I thought the idea of women fighting back was ludicrous. Okay, it must be like that famous quote of William James. A new idea is first condemned as ridiculous, and then dismissed as trivial, until finally it becomes what everybody knows.
Now, as a culture, if you look at any given culture, when things look feasible or doable, then movements start to take action. And it's not just individuals, but groups of individuals and communities of individuals take action when something looks possible. The people that we idolize, that we think are such heroes, is because they stood for something that seemed impossible and made it possible.
The self-defense training toughens women up so that then they can challenge the macho traditions of saying women are servants, women are sex objects, that we are here to serve men and not care about ourselves and what we have to offer in this world. And I do believe that it will take a worldwide movement of self-defense training for women. I am very, very committed to see this happen. Thank you very much.
Wonderful.
Beauty by Space, the book, and writing it, I thought, oh, as space explorers, men won't have the strength and weight advantage. And so I wrote to NASA in all my enthusiasm, and I said, has there been any assault in space? Of course, they didn't answer.
Yeah, I've been teaching in high schools for over 20 years, and I have teachers come up to me all the time and say, I can tell which students have taken your class. They speak up more, they're not afraid to be wrong, they're confident, and I think to myself, these are the future leaders of our world. and they're going to be strong and confident and powerful, and that's what I'm proud of, and that's what gives me goosebumps.
We certainly may need that newborn baby girl to grow into the one who will do the math or fly us to that other planet and possibly save the species. We need our women to again be shoulder to shoulder with our men, like the Viking explorers were, men and women, shoulder to shoulder, and focus on their forays into new worlds together.
And we want to empower leaders of social change, like Lena Khalifa. After seeing one of her close friends abused, Lena said that's enough. She had a background in martial arts, and so she opened She Fighter, a self-defense studio for women. So far, she's helped about 10,000 women learn how to protect themselves across the Middle East. So thank you, Lena. We want to be your partner in helping women to live with dignity and safety.
Freedom is what makes the world work. Every day in my business, I send commands to Mars. I'm one of the mission leads on the Mars Curiosity rover. I spend my days thinking about Mars, which means when I think about the Earth, I think about the Earth as a whole. And I don't see borders. I don't see nations. I see a human race. And women are part of that. We are all in this together. And self-defense is not for the sake of self-defense alone. It's to remind us that women are equals and that we have the right to the same skill set as anybody else. And then how we choose to use them is an individual decision.
In a world where more attackers got their ass kicked by the woman they attacked, the better off we'd all be. I can't believe I just said that, but I did.
Once women know that they can defend themselves in a physical way, then they can defend themselves emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, economically, politically. I mean, there's just no end to it.
We're going to yell, C, 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 to the empowerment of women. Uno, dos, tres. C, C, C. It's my greatest honor to introduce Dolores Huerta, the co-founder of the United Farm Workers.
Una viva para ellas también. ¡Que vivan las graduadas! Con un aplauso organizado vamos a gritar que sí se puede. Vamos todos juntos, por favor. ¡Sí se puede! Muchas gracias, muchas gracias.
Yo sé que sí se puede, y esto es tan bonito, aprendiéndolo, ya teniéndolo aquí adentro, se siente uno tan diferente, tan relajante, que no tengo más palabras para decir. Muchas gracias.
There are no particular order. Sonia.
So many times I chose to run. So many times I held my tongue.
Evangelina.
Never saying what I needed to. Scared they walk away, and I would lose.
Angelica.
I would lose, but now I'm here to fight. What if I golden? I've had enough. I fell down, but I got right back up, and now I'm stronger. I've got the heart of a hero.
Amparo. Gaby. Teresa.
se puede.
Says I can't dance with fire. I know that I'm alive and I'll survive. I'm a survivor. I've got the courage of a storm. Don't say you weren't warned, 'cause you've been warned. Thunder roars in me like a battle cry. Now it's my time. It's do or die. I've got the heart of a hero, the strength of a lion. I'll march like a soldier, braver and bolder. I'm gonna stand right here with nothing to fear. That big heartbeat ringing in my ears, 'cause I've got the heart of a hero. I've got the heart of a hero. No more war with myself. It's up to me and nobody else. I've got the heart of a hero, the strength of a lion. I'll march like a soldier,